Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to dig through the sources, pull out the really interesting stuff, the insights you might miss, and basically connect the dots for you.
Exactly. We do the reading, so you get the good stuff.
And today, we are doing a deep dive into someone truly fascinating, the American comedian and writer Jena Friedman.
Yeah, this one's interesting. It's really about, like, the architecture of dark comedy.
Right. How does someone build that?
Yeah.
We're looking at how sharp intelligence, real analytical skill gets applied to, well, some pretty grim subjects.
Super grim sometimes.
Our mission, really, is to track her career, which
Right.
is just incredibly varied. I mean, you've got late-night TV writing rooms, these very specific dark solo specials.
Featuring actual convicted criminals, which is something else.
Totally. And then true crime analysis, even an Oscar nomination. It's a wild ride.
It really is.
And the sources paint this picture of a compelling paradox, don't they?
Definitely. You've got this super sharp analytical mind. She was a healthcare consultant, at a major firm.
Right. Booz Allen Hamilton. We'll get into that.
And you mix that with this incredibly dark, cutting sensibility. It's like satire as surgery.
Yeah, using jokes to dissect things most people, frankly, wouldn't even want to acknowledge, let alone joke about.
Mm-hmm.
So we're tracing that whole arc, consultant to Oscar nominee, basically.
And what jumps out immediately from all the sources, just looking over them, is the sheer range.
The versatility. Yeah.
Right. She's listed everywhere as a stand-up, okay, but also a director, a writer, a host.
She wears a lot of hats.
A lot of hats. Across TV, film, print, stage. She's everywhere. But
If there's a thread.
exactly, there's this consistent core. No matter the medium, the sources all point to this gravitational pull towards the controversial,
The dark stuff.
the really dark, uncomfortable stuff. And I think that's the key thing we need to focus on, Her dark sensibility.
So that's just an act?
Doesn't seem like it. The sources mention it going way back, even high school. It feels like it's fundamental to how she sees the world.
Mm-hmm.
And she takes that sensibility and applies, like you said, structure to it. It's not just random darkness. It's very deliberate, analytical satire.
Okay, let's dig into that structure then. Because the starting point, well, it doesn't exactly scream provocative satirist, does it? Where did this all begin?
Right. Well, she grew up in Haddonfield, New Jersey.
Okay. Fairly standard suburban setting.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And specifically, the sources note, a conservative Jewish home.
Ah, interesting detail.
Yeah, so think traditional upbringing. Structure, rules, guidelines. She had a bat mitzvah, went to Hebrew school right through 10th grade.
So she knows the system, knows the tradition from the inside.
Exactly, and that's often crucial for effective satire, right? You have to understand the rules deeply before you can really break them or expose their absurdity in a meaningful way. It gives the critique more weight.
Makes sense. And what about high school? Was she like the edgy kid in the back?
Not according to the sources, no. She went to Haddonfield Memorial High School, and the picture painted is, well, quite different. She was apparently a really good student, disciplined, captain of the tennis team even.
Wow, okay. Captain of the tennis team.
Yeah. So definitely not the class clown, not the rebel, at least not outwardly. She was successful within the structure.
But the sources still mention that dark sensibility even back then.
They do, which
Wow.
is fascinating, isn't it? It suggests it wasn't like a reaction against failing or being an outsider.
Right. It wasn't rebellion born from not fitting in.
Exactly. It seems more like an internal way of seeing things, a critical lens she had, even while excelling in a pretty conventional environment. An intellectual choice, maybe.
An intellectual choice to look at the shadows, even when you're standing on the spotlight as team captain. That's quite a contrast.
It really is. And that lens, that critical perspective, seems like it got sharpened later on.
At university?
Yeah, at Northwestern University, she studied anthropology.
Okay, anthropology. Now that fits a bit better, maybe.
Yeah.
Studying human behavior, cultures.
Right. It's practically the academic foundation for satire. Anthropology is all about stepping outside your own cultural assumptions, looking objectively at rituals, power structures, the weird things people do.
The unspoken rules.
Exactly. It trains you to analyze why things are the way they are, why societies function ridiculously sometimes. It's systematic cultural critique.
So she's learning how to deconstruct culture academically, seeing it almost like data.
Yeah, kind of, like systems to be analyzed.
Yeah.
And that perspective, that academic rigor, you can really see it in the precision of her comedy later on. She's not just making fun of stuff, she's often analyzing the underlying system.
But hang on, because the career path takes a A pretty sharp turn after college, doesn't it? Not straight into comedy clubs or writing rooms.
Not at all. This is the really surprising bit, the professional detour. She gets a job as a healthcare consultant.
And not just any consultant job.
No, for Booz Allen Hamilton.
Oh.
Major player.
Okay, let's just pause on that. Booz Allen Hamilton. This is serious, high-level corporate strategy. Big data, complex systems analysis, PowerPoint decks worth probably more than my car.
Absolutely. Identifying structural weaknesses in massive, complicated systems like the U.S. healthcare industry. It requires intense analytical skill, precision, objectivity.
Zero room for error, and probably zero room for jokes, especially dark ones.
Right. So this feels like the big aha moment in her biography. Why does someone steeped in anthropology with this emerging dark sensibility go work there?
Did she just need a job? Or did she hate it and run screaming towards comedy?
Well, the sources don't really frame it as, like, a desperate escape from corporate drudgery. It feels more connected.
Connected how? Consulting and dark comedy.
Think about what high-level consulting actually is. You parachute into a complex system, you absorb vast amounts of information really quickly, you identify the core problems, the structural flaws, and you propose targeted surgical solutions. You have to be incredibly precise and analytical.
Right. Makes sense.
Now think about Friedman's comedy, especially the really pointed stuff. Doesn't it feel kind of similar?
Huh. Like analytical comedy.
Exactly. It's sharp, it's precise, it often goes right for the structural weaknesses and whatever she's targeting, a social norm, a political hypocrisy, a cultural absurdity.
So she didn't reject the analytical skills, she just refocused them.
That seems to be the implication.
Yeah.
She went from analyzing, say, inefficiencies in healthcare billing systems to analyzing inefficiencies or hypocrisies in, like, social or moral systems.
Oh, wow. So the Booz Allen experience wasn't a detour. It was actually training. Training for her specific brand of satire.
You could absolutely argue that. It honed the precision, the ability to cut through the noise and find the core issue. Her comedy isn't just observational. It often feels like a well-researched, sharply argued point delivered as a joke.
Straight to the bone.
Mm-hmm.
But still, the jump itself, leaving that kind of high-paying, structured career for, what, fringe festivals and uncertainty? What's the drive there?
Maybe it's about the delivery system. Consulting means working within the system, often trying to fix it from the inside, usually for powerful clients.
Right.
Comedy, especially her kind of dark, boundary-pushing satire, lets you stand outside the system and critique it much more forcefully. You can use transgression, shock, discomfort as tools.
So the corporate job gave her the analytical scalpel.
And comedy gave her the freedom, and maybe the platform, to use it on the targets she really wanted to dissect, fueled by that dark sensibility she always had.
That connection makes her trajectory make so much more sense. It's not just random jumps, it's applying a core skill set in different arenas.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's move into that next arena. Section 2, looking at her early creative work, where we start to see this unique style really take shape. Around, what, 2007?
Yeah, that's when things start popping up. And her first really notable project immediately shows that high-concept, critical approach you've been talking about. It was a play called The Refugee Girls Review.
Refugee Girls Review. Okay, tell me more.
The sources describe it as a satire inspired by American Girl dolls.
American Girl dolls. Wow.
That's
Okay.
right.
Those are, like, wholesome, historical, very expensive.
Exactly. Symbols of a certain kind of idealized, often quite privileged American girlhood. Very curated history, very commercialized sentimentality.
So what did Friedman do with them?
She takes that symbol and crashes it head on into the concept of refugees.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so she's immediately forcing the audience to confront the massive gap between this sanitized, affluent doll culture and the harsh realities of displacement and geopolitical suffering.
That's intense. And classic Friedman, based on what we're learning, taking a familiar cultural thing and twisting it hard to expose something uncomfortable underneath.
Totally. Systematic critique aimed right at a beloved cultural icon, analyzing the privilege inherent in the original concept.
And did it work? Did people get it?
Apparently so.
Yeah.
It wasn't just some obscure little show. It got significant critical acclaim, did really well at the 2008 New York International Fringe Festival.
Which is a big deal for launching new work.
Huge deal. And it even had a successful off-Broadway run. So right out of the gate, she established herself not just as funny, but as an intellectual satirist, dealing with heavy themes in a very structured, high-concept way.
Okay, so Refugee Girls sets the stage. What came next?
Well, around 2010, we get something maybe a bit lighter on the surface, but just as pertinent. The web series Ted and Gracie.
Ted and Gracie.
Yeah.
Sounds sweet.
Not exactly. It was a direct parody of the New York Times wedding videos.
Oh, those videos, right?
Really?
The vows section features.
Yeah.
Very specific vibe, often quite earnest.
Yeah.
And showcasing a certain kind of New York elite.
Precisely. That self-serious, slightly quirky, but ultimately high-status, affluent aesthetic. Friedman nailed it.
And how do we know she nailed it?
Well, the best possible validation for a satirist, really.
Don't tell me.
Yep. She got a cease and desist letter from the New York Times.
No way. That's amazing.
Isn't it? It means the parody was so accurate, so effective at dismantling that specific cultural moment of, curated affluence and self-importance, that the institution itself felt compelled to shut it down.
That's better than any award, almost. It proves she got under their skin, that her anthropological eye correctly identified and deconstructed that social ritual.
Absolutely. It confirmed the power of her observational critique. But if we're looking for the moment where her reputation for really, aggressively pushing boundaries solidified.
Where things got darker, maybe.
Yeah, and more explicitly confrontational. We have to talk about her solo show, American Cunt.
Okay, yep. That title, that definitely sends a message.
Right. It premiered in 2015 at the Edinburgh Festival Fringe. And that title alone, American Cunt, it's basically the whole thesis right there.
It forces you to react immediately.
Instantly. It's challenging. It's loaded with misogyny, political weight. Just putting that word up front ensures the audience is prepped for something intense. It's like a filter, almost. You know this isn't going to be gentle comedy.
You have to engage with the word itself and why it's so charged, before she even tells a joke.
Exactly. It's preemptive commentary. And it sets the stage for exploring themes of gender, power, American identity, all through this very confrontational lens.
And how was it received, beyond the initial shock of the title?
It was a massive critical success, especially at Edinburgh, which is, a huge international stage for comedy and theater, a real proving ground.
Gotcha.
And it had legs. The sources point out that Paste magazine named it one of the 10 best stand-up comedy specials of 2016.
Okay, so it wasn't just shock value, it resonated.
Deeply. And what the sources suggest is that this show really cemented her reputation. It codified her style of using extremely challenging language, tackling really difficult themes, feminism, politics, hints of sexual violence, body issues, using that bluntness to hammer the point home.
It sounds demanding for the audience. You can't just sit back passively.
No, definitely not. It requires you to think, to engage with why you're uncomfortable, why these words and topics hit so hard.
It feels like it connects back to the anthropology again, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's like she's analyzing the systems, patriarchy, gendered violence, whatever, and using the most potent, shocking linguistic tools available to force the audience to confront the reality of those systems.
It's not just saying a bad word.
No, it's a strategic weapon.
Yeah.
Why is this word so powerful? Why is its negativity aimed primarily at women? Asking those questions is the anthropological work happening underneath the very explicit joke.
Okay, so she establishes this incredibly sharp, provocative solo voice. But then, section 3, her career takes another interesting turn into the belly of the beast almost. Mainstream television and film.
Yeah, and what's remarkable is how she seems to navigate these massive, highly structured, often quite conservative institutions without losing that edge. It's like she's applying her analytical skills to the system itself.
So where did she work?
Well, her late-night writing credits are pretty impressive. She was a field producer at The Daily Show with Jon Stewart.
Okay, that makes sense. Political satire, requires analysis, field work, fits the profile.
Totally. You're not just writing jokes. You're analyzing news, finding the satirical angle, and then going out and producing a segment that critiques reality. It requires that analytical producer brain.
And after The Daily Show?
She moved over to The Late Show with David Letterman.
Wow. Letterman, that's iconic. Old school late night.
Hugely iconic. And there's a really significant detail the sources highlight about her time there.
Was that?
When she was hired, she was only the second female writer on the entire staff.
Get out. Seriously. Only the second.
Yep. In that era of late night, which was notoriously male-dominated.
That's staggering. What does that tell us about her?
It tells you she must have had incredible talent, obviously, but also resilience. To thrive and get her voice heard in an environment likely not designed for it.
Yeah, you'd need that same kind of fortitude, that ability to navigate complex structures that maybe she honed in consulting or academia.
Exactly. Surviving and succeeding in that kind of high-pressure, historically skewed environment takes a certain kind of strength and strategic thinking.
And speaking of navigating difficult environments, There's an anecdote mentioned in the source material that just perfectly sums up the sheer chaos she sometimes operates in.
Oh, the Roseanne incident. Yes, it's almost too perfect.
Right. So set this up for us. It was from a comedy Bang Bang episode in 2023 where she talked about it.
Yeah, she recounted the story. So back in 2018, the Roseanne show was being revived. Huge deal, massive anticipation.
Yeah, remember that.
And apparently, Roseanne Barr herself had seen Jena Friedman's stand-up.
American Cunt, maybe, or something
Well,
similar.
presumably something with that dark, edgy sensibility. Barr liked it and specifically requested Friedman be hired as a writer for the revival.
Okay, so Friedman, the sharp social critic, gets hired onto this massive mainstream sitcom revival because the star wants her specific, challenging voice. The irony is already building.
Right. She's about to apply her analytical skills to this huge network structure, and then...
The twist.
The twist. The very day Friedman was scheduled to start work.
The day she starts.
The literal day. Roseanne Barr goes on that infamous racist Twitter rant.
Oh my God, I remember the fallout.
Instantaneous. The network canceled the entire show. Boom. Gone. Before Friedman even clocked in for her first day.
Wow. Wow.
It's such a perfect, almost darkly comic illustration of her whole world, isn't it?
Yeah. Her structured analytical approach, ready to engage with this big project.
And it just evaporates in an instant because of pure, unpredictable human chaos and self-destruction.
The very thing she analyzes in her comedy.
Exactly. It's like life imitating her art, or maybe just confirming the volatile reality that political satirists always have to deal with. The ground is constantly shifting underneath you.
That's an incredible story. But she clearly bounced back. We can't talk about her institutional work without mentioning the biggest collaboration, right?
Absolutely not. The film world definitely took notice. We have to talk about Borat Subsequent Moviefilm.
Released in 2020. Huge cultural moment, especially given the timing.
Massive. And Friedman was part of the writing team.
Contributing to that screenplay, I mean, that's a complex beast. Part scripted, part hidden camera, deeply political, incredibly high stakes.
Totally. And that work earned the whole writing team an Academy Award nomination for Best Adapted Screenplay.
That's huge recognition. Oscar nominee.
It really is. And, the Forces correctly list the full team: Sacha Baron Cohen, Anthony Hines, Dan Swimer, Peter Bainham, Erica Rivenoja, Dan Mazer, Lee Kern, Nina Pedrad. It was a big group effort.
Sure, collaboration is key on something like that.
But her name being on that list, her contributing to that specific project, says a lot. It shows she can operate at the highest level of complex, politically charged, logistically nightmarish satire.
You'd need the political brain of a Daily Show producer.
The strategic thinking of a consultant.
And the sheer nerve to tackle that kind of real-world chaos.
Exactly. It's like bringing her structured analysis to Baron Cohen's unique brand of orchestrated chaos. A perfect, if demanding, fit.
It really highlights her range, moving between these huge Hollywood projects and her own, very personal, very dark solo stuff.
That duality seems key.
Completely. She can play the game within the big institutions, but also build her own unique, challenging worlds outside of them.
Which brings us perfectly to Section 4. This is where I think we see the purest expression of the Jena Friedman brand, where she's fully in control. The Adult Swim specials, and her take on true crime.
Yeah, this is where she really leans into the darkness with full creative control. The soft focus with Jena Friedman specials for Adult Swim.
She created these.
Created, co-executive produced, directed, and hosted them. First one aired in February 2018, second in January 2019. These are her vision.
And what is that vision? What are these specials like?
Well, they're not typical interviews, that's for sure. They're unsettling in a very deliberate way.
How so? She approaches her subjects with this kind of quiet, almost unnervingly calm, analytical detachment. It makes the satire bite even harder. And the subjects themselves, they're often people living way out on the fringes of social acceptability or controversy.
Like who? Give us an example.
Well, she interviewed John McAfee.
The John McAfee, the software guy turned international fugitive and conspiracy theorist.
That's the one. A figure practically drowning in complex legal issues, bizarre behavior, geopolitical intrigue, a perfect storm of chaos for her analytical lens.
Okay, that definitely fits the fringe description, but there's another interview subject mentioned that's even more intense.
Oh, yes. This is the one that really defines the soft focus style, I think, the razor's edge. She interviewed Gilberto Valle.
The cannibal cop.
The so-called cannibal cop, former NYPD officer who was convicted of conspiracy to kidnap, torture, cook, and eat women based on his online chats and searches.
Right, I remember that case. Horrifying. Didn't the conviction get overturned later?
It did, on appeal. They ruled the chats were fantasy, however disturbing. But the sheer darkness of the subject matter, the reality of what he fantasized about, that remains incredibly potent and disturbing.
So,
Yeah.
what does Jena Friedman do? How do you interview someone associated with that? This isn't political satire anymore.
No, this is diving headfirst into real-life horror. And this is where her approach gets incredibly bold, maybe even ethically tricky for some viewers.
What did she do?
Instead of focusing solely on the crime or the legal case, the segment was framed around helping Gilberto Valle find love.
Wait, what? Helping the cannibal cop find love on a comedy special.
Yep. They treated him like just another awkward single guy applying the tropes of dating shows and relationship advice to him.
That's breathtakingly dark.
It's walking the highest possible tightrope. The juxtaposition is everything. The mundane ritual of dating applied to someone whose fantasies were monstrous.
And there's a specific detail the sources mention. A question she asked potential dates.
Yes. This is the absolute killer detail. When interviewing women as potential dates for Valet, Friedman apparently asked them questions like, how fast do you run?
Oh my God.
Right. That single question is just devastatingly brilliant dark comedy.
It's funny and terrifying at the exact same moment.
Because it's so absurdly practical in that specific horrifying context. It acknowledges the underlying threat, the reason for his notoriety, within the completely inappropriate frame of a dating question.
It uses logic, a practical dating concern, arguably to expose the absolute horror of the situation. That's the consultant mind meeting the abyss.
Exactly. It identifies the core, unspeakable fear and makes it the punchline. You're forced to laugh, but it's a deeply uncomfortable laugh about confronting the unthinkable, maximum impact.
Okay, so soft focus pushes the boundaries about as far as they can go. Then she takes this sensibility, this willingness to stare into the darkness, and applies it to a whole genre, right? True crime.
Correct, but again with her specific analytical twist. In 2021, she directed and starred in a series called True Crime Story, Indefensible for Sundance TV.
Indefensible.
Okay. That series later evolved into Indefensible on AMC+, framed more explicitly as a comedic true crime series.
Comedic true crime. That sounds like another tightrope walk. How does she approach that? Is it just making jokes about terrible events?
No, and that's the crucial point the sources emphasize. Friedman herself stated that her goal was explicitly not to make, quote, true crime murder porn.
Okay, so she's aware of the potential pitfalls, the exploitation inherent in the genre sometimes.
Very aware. In a media landscape saturated with true crime that often feels sensationalist or exploitative, she seems to be trying to do something different.
Which is what?
Using the true crime framework, but shifting the focus. Instead of just lingering on the gruesome details, she uses her analytical comedic lens to examine the systems surrounding the cases.
So looking at police failures, judicial issues, societal factors.
Exactly. Analyzing the complexities, the absurdities, the often uncomfortable truths within the justice system and society that allow these things to happen or that lead to wrongful convictions or just bizarre outcomes.
So she's using comedy not just to entertain, but as a tool for social analysis within the true crime genre itself.
Precisely. Challenging the audience, challenging you to think critically about why you consume true crime and what you take away from it, moving beyond just the whodunit to the why did the system allow this.
That feels like a really mature application of her satirical skills.
Yeah.
Taking a popular genre and trying to elevate it, or at least complicate it.
Yeah, turning potential murder porn into structural analysis with jokes, it's ambitious.
Okay, let's shift into the final stretch here, Section 5. Looking at her more recent work from, say, 2022 onwards, how has her voice continued to evolve? Is she still pushing those same buttons?
Oh, definitely still active, still pushing. Her output rate is pretty incredible, actually. In September 2022, she dropped her latest stand-up special, Lady Killer, on Peacock.
Lady Killer. Another provocative title.
Absolutely. Keeps that confrontational edge. And then, hot on the heels of that, in April 2023, her book Not Funny came out, published by Simon & Schuster.
A book. Okay, so moving from stand-up and TV specials to long-form writing.
Yeah, which allows for, more sustained arguments, deeper dives into her thinking. It shows she's constantly exploring different ways to deliver her structured critiques, demanding engagement across multiple formats.
And she's still doing live performance, too.
Very much so.
Yeah.
In August 2025, actually, just recently, she took a new solo show to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival again.
Back to Edinburgh. What was this one called?
This one was titled Motherfucker.
Okay, so still not shying away from challenging titles.
Not in the slightest. But the description of this show in the sources is particularly interesting. It notes that Motherfucker balances her usual political zingers with something new. All too raw grief.
Grief. That feels like a shift, maybe. More personal vulnerability alongside the political analysis.
It really does. If you think of American Cunt as being heavily focused on external critique, political, sexual, this suggests a blending, acknowledging deep, personal human emotion, loss, vulnerability, right alongside the sharp satire.
That's fascinating. It suggests maybe even the most analytical mind, the most rigorous satirist, has to eventually integrate that raw, human emotional truth into their work. It adds another layer to the system, perhaps.
Yeah, incorporating vulnerability into the comedic structure. It makes the work potentially even more complex, more resonant.
And then there's one more recent event that feels like it perfectly encapsulates her entire intellectual journey.
Ah, you must mean the TED Talk.
The TED Talk, yes. In April 2025. What's the topic?
The title was The Jokes AI Won't Tell.
Wow, okay. That is timely and very Jena Friedman.
Isn't it? It puts her right at the cutting edge of this huge cultural conversation we're all having about artificial intelligence, creativity, and what makes us human.
So what's the implication there? What jokes won't AI tell?
Well, presumably the difficult ones, the dark ones, the ones that require navigating real moral ambiguity, the ones that risk offense, the ones that come from that deep, messy, human understanding of taboo and transgression.
The kind of jokes she tells.
Yeah.
The how fast do you run kind of jokes.
Exactly. The jokes that require not just pattern recognition, but genuine, risky human insight, often into the darkest parts of ourselves. She's essentially making a case for the irreplaceability of human-driven, boundary-pushing, often uncomfortable humor.
It connects everything back, doesn't it? The anthropology, the consulting, the satire. It's all been about analyzing systems and pushing boundaries. Now she's analyzing the boundary between human and artificial critique.
It's the perfect intellectual capstone, really. She's arguing in a way that her entire career, the willingness to tackle corporate life, sexual politics, talk to the cannibal cop, navigate political chaos, embodies the very thing AI can't replicate. That messy, risky, analytical, dark sensibility.
Probing the edges with precision.
Yeah, it closes the loop beautifully. Starts with analysis, applies it to culture via satire, confronts moral horror directly, and now uses that entire experience to question the limits of technology itself, asking what gets lost when you take the human element, the darkness, the grief, the risk out of the equation.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. Summarize this deep dive. What's the big picture on Jena Friedman?
Well, I think what we've seen is that her career is this incredible demonstration of applying a really sharp, critical, analytical mind, a mind seriously honed by anthropology and high-level corporate consulting.
Right. Don't forget Booz Allen Hamilton.
Never forget Booz Allen. Applying that mind to the most uncomfortable, difficult, often disturbing social issues you can imagine. And her consistent tool, her delivery mechanism, is dark comedy.
Used like a scalpel.
Used like a scalpel to make you, the listener, look at things you'd probably rather avoid.
And she's done it across so many different fields. She's navigated the structures of late-night TV like Letterman and The Daily Show, collaborated on massive films like Borat, but also carved out her own unique space with incredibly provocative work like Soft Focus or American Cunt, and even reshaped a genre with Indefensible.
She uses structure to analyze and confront chaos, whether it's corporate, political, or deeply personal.
So what's the final analysis, the thought we should leave people with?
For me, what's truly fascinating and what you should really hold on to is how that early training in structure, the anthropology, the consulting, seems to be the engine driving the precision and the courage of her satire.
It's not just random provocation.
Not at all. She doesn't just lob jokes like grenades. It feels like she applies this systematic, almost clinical rigor to the absolute darkest, messiest corners of culture and human behavior. She dissects them with the kind of precision you'd expect from someone who once had to map out, incredibly complex systems.
A methodical approach to the madness.
Exactly. And if we loop that back one last time to her TED Talk, the jokes AI won't tell. It really forces a question, doesn't it?
Which is?
Well, if the core function of really potent dark comedy, the kind Friedman practices, is to shine a light on humanity's flaws, to put boundaries, to make us confront uncomfortable truths head on, then maybe that very ability, the willingness to be deliberately provocative, to navigate ambiguity, to risk offense in the pursuit of a deeper, often unsettling insight, to ask, how fast do you run? Knowing exactly what it implies. Maybe that is the essentially human act that artificial intelligence will never truly replicate.
Is that capacity for confronting the dark, for weaponizing discomfort for the sake of analysis, the final frontier of human creativity?
That's the thought I'd leave you with, is that uniquely human edge, the thing that will always separate writers like Jena Friedman from the algorithms. Something to think about.
Definitely something to think about. Thank you for joining us on the Deep Dive.